let's talk about Theresa Gaffney again. Because, I mean, I've talked about her more on this show than... Okay, no, to be fair, I talked about Trump more, but I talked about her a lot. So back in like November, we were petitioning the county officials here in Schuylkill County for an Equality Act of Schuylkill County. And we were asking them, please pass some legislation or put up some rules, or at least petition and ask the state for these rules. Tell them that, we're going to, Schuylkill County supports anti-discrimination laws to help the LGBTQ, Eventually, after going to multiple meetings for the county commissioners, they did sign a letter to the representatives and senators for our area, and they did send that to them. We double-checked and stuff. Sadly, it didn't mention LGBTQ, which was fun. But anyway, right after that, their big concern was, hey, how come we've never heard about discrimination happening against the LGBTQ? And so we did an entire story about it to tell them about it. This is the answer. You ask, how come we're not hearing about discrimination? So here's your answer. This is why. It is because of people like Theresa Gaffney, who are elected to office time and time again, who are massive homophobic people. They are in our county offices right now, working, and she specifically is working in the marriage license department, where she's the person you go to get a marriage license in this county. So, people fear her, and people fear homophobes like that. Because if you're not aware, and if you haven't seen our multiple stories about her, way, way back in the day when Pennsylvania and the federal government passed marriage equality, she did not agree with marriage equality. She, back then and still to this day, in her quoted materials to us and provided through text messages, she still believes that marriage should be between a man and a woman, right? So way back in the day, when marriage equality passed, she challenged the federal government, and she took it all the way to the federal court. And she sued and said, I don't want to do my job. I don't want to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples. I don't think that is right. I don't know why. Like, it's already passed. Why are you challenging it? Like, this is a good thing. We're heading in the right direction, And so she challenged it, and she was the only clerk of courts in all of Pennsylvania to challenge it. Please keep that factoid in mind for a moment. We will come back to it, I promise you. So later, when her case actually was heard, the federal judge denied her case completely, laughed in her face, and said, you're ridiculous for even trying to bring this up. The federal court ain't going to hear it. The Supreme Court ain't going to hear it. Goodbye, Do your job. And she said, well, why can't this case be heard by the Supreme Court? Why can't I at least get it heard? Well, the Supreme Court already heard a marriage equality case, so I don't know what decision you're after there. But so Theresa Gaffney came back, and she finally decided, you know what, I should probably do my job. That I'm paid to do, by the way, that Theresa Gaffney is paid to do. She should probably do her job. So kudos to her for doing her job, as the rest of elected officials should do. Anyway, so years later, she decides to run for higher office this year, and she is currently running in the 125th District of Pennsylvania in the Pennsylvania State House of Representatives. And she's running against 3 other competitors, one of which is a man by the name of Christy Joy. We will circle back to him as well, by the way. So she runs for higher office, and we do a story about her last news show in March of 2020. We ran a story on Theresa Gaffney, all about how she's running for higher office now. And we asked her in that news story for comments, because we don't want to just run a story and not have comments from both sides. We asked her multiple times, about a dozen times or so, what's your stance on marriage equality now? Are you going to try to challenge it yet again if you get into this elected office? If you're elected, will you support the PA Fairness Act, conversion therapy bans, LGBTQ education in all schools in Pennsylvania? These things that are desperately needed, they are supported by a majority of Pennsylvanians. Will you vote for it? Or will you go against it? What is your stance on this now? I don't want to judge you solely on this one court case years and years ago. What is your stance now? She never gets back to me at that point. And so the story goes out. I'm like, hey, we asked her for comment. She denied comment. That's what happens. If you want to have a say in our episodes, respond to our questions. It's just as simple as that. She has a large team. I know many of the people that are working on her campaign. Why is she not responding? So we go on, and a little while later, her campaign page shares something very interesting. So out of the blue, let me get to it here because it's so funny. And like I said, none of this is edited, so it's all off the cuff, and that's what happens in this show. So she shares photos of her in front of a podium of the PA Family Institute. Now, if you're not aware, PA Family Institute is well known for being a hate group because anti-LGBTQ groups can be classified as hate groups under federal court rules now. So that's fun. And multiple people have condemned PA Family Institute for being a hate group already, so that's fun. And she is sharing herself being behind the podium of a known hate group now. She shares these photos, and they are from an award ceremony where she is being awarded the, Power of One Award. It's a award for her courage. If that's a thing that you can classify her actions as, because she was the only clerk of courts in Pennsylvania to challenge marriage equality. So, she receives an award for being a homophobe. And the only one to challenge marriage equality. She receives this award. Because the PA Family Institute, by the way, is anti-LGBTQ. They, on their website right now, if you go there and check it out, which I don't encourage doing, but if you want to fact check what I'm saying, you can go there and check it out. They are adamantly against marriage equality. They believe that senators and House of Representatives should overturn the Supreme Court ruling on this, and gay people should never be allowed to marry. How dare gay people want the same rights and freedoms of everyone else in the country? How dare we want to have a ball and chain just like you have a ball and chain as a straight couple? How come we want the same kind of relationship that you straight people always complain about in your everyday life? How dare we want that equality, right? But anyway, she shares these photos. She's so proud of getting this Courage of One award, or this Power of One award, right? And in her post, she says, where the hell is it at? In her post on sharing these photos, she's like, in 2014, Barack Obama and his far-left allies waged war against Pennsylvania's Defense of Marriage Act, known as DAMA, which that was the law which didn't allow gay people to get married in Pennsylvania before marriage equality passed and overturned it. But all of the Commonwealth's 67 registers of wills at the time, but of all the Commonwealth's 67 registers of will at the time, only one refused to cave to the enormous pressure applied by left-wing activists and the liberal media, choosing instead to stand up for the rule of law. Theresa Gaffney took the fight all the way to the United States Supreme Court for her courage stand, during which she withstood a torrent of vile and intimidating emails and phone calls from liberals. The Pennsylvania Family Institute awarded Theresa with the prestigious Power of One Award. Rest assured that Theresa will never back down from liberal special interest in Harrisburg. Rest assured that Theresa will never back down. from being a homophobe. Well, that's good to know. So, right after she shared that, as you probably know, I'm a part of the Pennsylvania Equality Project, and we happen to have 28,000 and some odd members. So I asked our entire group to go to her page. Let your voices be heard. And so they helped me take to the comments. Some of them are from the area. Theresa's voters will be voting for her in the primary elections in June of this year, which was postponed, by the way, from, I believe, a time in April because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But they helped me get her attention with over 186 comments, which was really fun. We finally did get her attention by flooding her entire page with rainbows. It was so much fun, honestly, to just, poke at a homophobe until they finally responded to our questions. Because I asked her all these questions over a dozen times. She refused to even comment back anything from her entire team. So finally we got her attention. And I reached out to her through private messages. And I asked her, will you support the PA Fairness Act, conversion therapy ban, LGBTQ education in all schools? Will you try to fight marriage equality at all if you're elected? With that many people commenting on her page, she finally got back to me. So she tells me she doesn't want to answer a lot of these questions to someone like me because I, in her eyes, am not a good enough reporter. Even though, I source things multiple times, I do a lot of hard work for my job, and, I'm a reporter for many different places. So, that's fun. But she goes, but on this context, I am head of an organization or head of this show, and then I'm also a part of another organization for LGBTQ rights. So I get that, I'm an activist. I do understand that I'm an activist on this issue. I'm not acting as a reporter on this. But also as a reporter, I'm just curious on her views because as a reporter, I'm trying to report for this show. I'm trying to figure out, hey, for the fans of this show, how are people going to vote if they're elected? You need to know this information in order to make a legitimate vote and know who you're voting for. I believe you should have all the information in front of you, regardless on what that information is. If someone's a homophobe, if someone's great on LGBTQ rights, you should know that information. It doesn't matter which side they lean. You should know that before getting into the ballot box, And that's something that I'm always trying to advocate here on the show is you need to know the information. So as a member of the media, I reach out to these people and I ask these questions for that reason. She goes, quote, you're an activist and that's okay, but I'm not beholden to activist, unquote. Keep in mind on her page, she's a huge NRA supporter. Isn't that being beholden to activist? But anyway, she continues, quote, for the record, the issue of same-sex marriage is settled law. Even though my religious beliefs dictate marriage is between one man and one woman, I respect the decision of the Supreme Court. I in no way want to tell anyone who they can and can't love. The point of this post was to show that I will stand up for my and my voters' values, even in the face of hate and vitriol. I will not be bowed by special interest. Again, even though she supports the NRA. You may not like my courage on this issue, but my ability to stand pat against hate may come in handy on an issue for which we both agree. It's a good response, actually. I actually do respect that response. I then asked her, hey, would you be willing to sit down with another of my colleagues? May not like me very much. I understand that. I'm an activist. I have a very, very heavy slant on this entire thing. I think she's a massive homophobe because she's a massive homophobe, and she's admitting it in her text messages that she still believes marriage is between a man and a woman only. So, yeah, I have a big slant on this. I understand that. but I'm not going to lie about what you say. I'm not going to take your words out of context. These are your exact words. I'm not going to do that. I'm a reporter first and foremost. So I always seek the truth no matter what that truth is. So anyway, I ask her, are you willing to sit down with members of the LGBTQ community in our county? Because keep in mind, there are multiple LGBTQ organizations and groups here in Schuylkill County, which she would be representing the citizens of if she was elected. So she goes, I absolutely would be willing to sit down and listen to issues affecting your community. As an outsider, it's hard to imagine what difficulties LGBTQ people face every day. I believe that once elected, I'll represent all of the 125th, not just the Republicans. So that's her quotes. So I do actually appreciate that. And if she is elected, we will be definitely taking her up on that offer. While I personally still do not want her elected because, she has a history, and she still doesn't want to answer our questions about the PA Fairness Act, which is the biggest issue up for election this year, for House of Representatives at least. So, she still hasn't answered my question on that, so I take it that she doesn't support that in any way, but at least she's respectful of the Supreme Court's decision on marriage equality, so that's good. So she has caved a little bit, but mostly so that she doesn't get arrested like Kim Davis was by not issuing marriage licenses. So I think that's more of it than anything. If the Kim Davis story didn't happen, I don't know if our situation here in Schuylkill County would be any different. But on the other side of that race, we also heard from another of the candidates in that same 125th race. So she is running against three other people on that same ballot for the Republican primary. By the way, this is not the general election yet, but she's running against a man by the name of Christy Joy. Christy Joy, who responded to one of my comments of like, hey, because he asked, do you mind doing something and mind sharing a video of mine? And I'm like, hey, what do you mean? He comes back with, thanks, Matt. Everybody deserves a chance at happiness. And that is referencing, I believe, LGBTQ rights, because that is what we were talking about. So, so we sort of can figure, I'm not going to guarantee anything on anything here, but I can sort of say, there are other people on that ballot that support LGBTQ rights more than her, at least at this point. Again, we haven't gotten that sit-down interview with her, with a reporter friend of mine who will be able to ask a lot more questions. We haven't gotten that yet, but I'm hoping one day soon. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this episode and want to support more content like this, please consider pledging to our Patreon page, where you can get a ton of benefits. Just go to patreon.com/MHPTV or click the link in the description. Don't forget to like this video, share your LGBTQ-friendly thoughts in the comments, hit that rainbow subscribe button so you don't miss out on new episodes of our show, and share this video with others. I'm your host, Matt Haslam. This has been PBR. Have a gay day, everyone, and bye for now. Watch Powered by Rainbows Season 3, only on MHPTV.